The galaxy had been in turmoil for centuries. The galactic superpowers, the Archon Dominion, the Zeral Syndicate, and the Tauran Imperium, were locked in a constant power struggle. Each empire ruled with an iron fist, suppressing weaker species and ensuring their dominance through military might, advanced technology, and ruthless politics. Among them, humanity was often seen as insignificant, a mere footnote in the history of the cosmos. Earth, their homeworld, had been nearly forgotten by the greater galactic community. However, on the eve of a pivotal battle, one human would rise from the shadows, a single decision that would alter the course of history. It was Commander Ana Vasquez, a human officer in the Archon Dominion's fleet, who stood at the precipice of this monumental change. She had been born and raised on Earth, and despite the Dominion's oppressive regime, she had fought her way to the rank of fleet commander through sheer skill, determination, and ingenuity. But the price had been steep. Her family, her friends, and even the ideals of her youth had been sacrificed in the name of duty. The war had reached its boiling point when the Tauran Imperium, under the rule of their Emperor Corys, launched a surprise offensive into Dominion-controlled space. The Archon fleet, though powerful, had suffered numerous defeats at the hands of the Tauran's superior tactics. The Tauran's warships, their sleek designs capable of moving at unimaginable speeds, were overwhelming the Dominion's forces. It was only a matter of time before Earth, already struggling under the yoke of the Dominion's control, would become a target for invasion. The battle took place near the heart of Dominion territory, a choke point in the galaxy that controlled the flow of vital resources. If the Tauran seized it, the Dominion would be crippled beyond repair. Ana Vasquez knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the decision she made in this moment would shape everything to come. On the bridge of her flagship, the Vanguard, the weight of her responsibility bore down on her. Her crew, human, alien, and synthetic, looked to her for guidance, their futures dependent on the choices she would make. The Tauran fleet, led by Emperor Corys himself, loomed in the distance, their ships like shadows in the starry void. She had been given orders: retreat, abandon the sector, and save what was left of the Dominion's forces. But Vasquez knew that retreat meant surrender. If the Tauran controlled this region, the galaxy's power structure would shift permanently. The Dominion would never recover. Humanity's place in the galaxy would be reduced to nothing more than a memory. A cold realization washed over her as she stared at the holographic display in front of her. This was not just a military engagement, it was a decision that could either break or forge the future of the entire universe. She could follow orders and allow the enemy to claim victory, or she could risk everything for a chance at something greater. A chance to change the course of history. Ana took a deep breath. She could feel the eyes of her crew on her, waiting for her next words. For a moment, the silence was deafening. She thought of her people, her fellow humans, the ones who had suffered so much. Could she betray them by following orders? Could she allow her galaxy to fall into the hands of the Tauran, or the Zeral, or any of the other empires that viewed humanity as weak and insignificant? No. She would not be the one to surrender. She would fight. Full speed ahead, she commanded, her voice steady but resolute. We fight. With that simple decision, the course of the battle was set. It would be a battle like no other, one that would echo through time and space. Ana Vasquez had made her choice, and with it, she would reshape the fate of the universe. The Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it sliced through the darkness of space. The Tauran fleet was already closing in, their ships appearing like dark specters against the swirling nebula behind them. Ana Vasquez stood at the helm, her hand gripping the edge of the command chair, eyes locked onto the view screen. The battle was about to begin. Her decision had been made, and now it was time for action. There was no turning back. The stakes were beyond anything she had ever faced before, and the cost of failure would be catastrophic, not just for the Dominion, but for every living being in the galaxy. This was no longer a fight for dominance or resources. It was a fight for survival. Commander, her communications officer, Lieutenant Jen, spoke up, his voice filled with tension. The Tauran ships are in range. They're preparing to fire. Ana nodded sharply. Prepare the fleet. We engage on my mark. The bridge of the Vanguard was a hive of activity as her crew scrambled to ready their weapons and shields. The entire ship was vibrating with the anticipation of battle. Anna could feel the surge of adrenaline coursing through her own veins, her mind sharp and focused as she considered her strategy. She had the element of surprise on her side. While the Dominion fleet had been retreating, they had still managed to set up defensive positions, and the Tauren had underestimated the resolve of the human fleet. But Anna knew that their weapons and tactics would not be enough to win the day. The Tauren's ships were faster, more agile, and far better equipped. They were a force to be reckoned with, their precision strikes devastating. The only way to turn the tide would be to use her most precious asset, human ingenuity. They might not have the firepower, but they had brains, and that was something no empire could easily replicate. Ready, she murmured to herself, though she knew the whole crew was ready. Now! Anna shouted, and in an instant, the battle erupted. The Vanguard fired its weapons, sending a torrent of energy blasts toward the Tauren fleet. The Vanguard was joined by several other Dominion ships, their guns opening fire as they weaved through the battlefield in tight formations. Despite their numerical disadvantage, the Dominion ships struck with calculated precision, their human pilots leveraging the agility and cunning that had long been underestimated. But the Tauren responded swiftly. Their fleet was a well-oiled machine, with ships darting through the space in coordinated patterns, unleashing a deadly barrage. Anna's flagship shuddered as a blast struck its shields, the energy rippling across the surface before the shields absorbed the impact. She could feel the heat from the blast pulse through the deck plates beneath her boots. Shields holding at 70%, reported Jen, his voice strained but steady. Anna's mind raced as she directed the ship's movements, dodging enemy fire and ordering a counterattack. The Dominion ships were skilled, but they needed more than just tactics, they needed to disrupt the Tauren's superior technology. She quickly formulated a plan, one that relied on precise timing and impeccable coordination. Send the signal to the other ships, she ordered, her voice low but forceful. We're going to create a diversion. She gave the order to fire a barrage of electromagnetic pulses at the Tauren flagship, the Celestial Flame. The EMP blasts were designed to overload the Tauren's sophisticated targeting systems and disrupt their weapons long enough for the Dominion fleet to gain the upper hand. The Celestial Flame was the key to the Tauren's advantage. If they could neutralize it, the Tauren fleet would be thrown into disarray. As the pulses hit their target, the Celestial Flame flared with bright bursts of energy, its shields flickering and its weapon systems malfunctioning. For a brief moment, the Tauren flagship was vulnerable, and Anna seized the opportunity. Now! All ships focus fire on the Celestial Flame, she commanded, and the Dominion fleet responded in unison. Weapons fired relentlessly, and the Tauren flagship's shields began to fail under the barrage. Anna's heart pounded as she watched the Tauren ship's exterior shimmer and crack. But even with the damage, the Celestial Flame was far from defeated. Suddenly, the Tauren fleet retaliated, launching a concentrated wave of energy blasts at the Dominion ships. One of the smaller Dominion vessels took the full brunt of the blast, its hull disintegrating in a brilliant explosion. The shockwave rocked the Vanguard, throwing Anna to the ground. Status, she barked, struggling to maintain control. We're fine, Jen answered quickly, though his voice held a hint of strain. But we've lost the Aurora. Anna's gaze hardened. Then we make sure they didn't die in vain. She steadied herself and rose back to her feet. The real fight had only just begun. The battle raged on, chaos swirling in every direction. The vast emptiness of space was illuminated by the blinding flashes of energy weapons colliding, the soundless eruptions of ships disintegrating into clouds of burning debris. The Vanguard weaved through the battle with precision, its crew working as one, guided by Ana Vasquez's unyielding resolve. The Tauren fleet, while momentarily disrupted by the EMP blasts, quickly adapted. The Celestial Flame had managed to restore its shields and weapon systems faster than anyone had anticipated. It was once again a towering force in the battle, and its position at the heart of the Tauren fleet was devastating. If they couldn't neutralize it soon, the Dominion forces would crumble under the weight of its superior firepower. Anna's mind raced, calculating their options. The Vanguard could not sustain another direct hit like the one it had just taken. The fleet needed to regroup, but the Tauren were already pressing the attack. "Commander," Jin spoke again, his voice tight with urgency. "We've got a new problem. Tauren reinforcements just arrived from the core systems. We're outnumbered 3-1 now." Anna clenched her fists. There was no retreating now, not with so many lives at stake. She scanned the battlefield, her eyes darting from one ship to the next, searching for any possible advantage. Then she saw it. The celestial flame had created a temporary blind spot in its formation. It had launched a series of decoy drones, designed to distract and confuse the Dominion forces, but it had left a gap in its defenses. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Anna's heart skipped a beat. If she could exploit this vulnerability, she might be able to take down the flagship. "Lieutenant, I need a precise strike on the Tauren flagship's portside shields," she commanded, voice cutting through the tension. "Send a squadron of fighters to create a diversion. We'll make our move once the drones are distracted." Jin hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Aye, Commander. Sending the order now." The fighter squadrons shot out from the Vanguard, their small, nimble ships darting through the chaos of battle. They swooped in, firing high-powered laser blasts at the Tauren decoys, drawing attention and pulling the Tauren fighters away from the flagship's flank. It was a risky move, but Anna was willing to gamble everything on it. "Now!" Anna yelled, gripping the armrests of her chair. She watched as the Vanguard's main weapons locked onto the celestial flame. Full power to the portside guns. The ship's cannons hummed with energy, and a brilliant beam of concentrated plasma surged toward the vulnerable spot in the Tauren flagship's shields. The blast struck with pinpoint accuracy, sending a shockwave through the Tauren ship and causing its shields to flicker. "Direct hit," reported Jen, his voice filled with a mix of relief and disbelief. "The flagship's shields are down to 30%. We've got a window, Commander." Anna's pulse quickened. This was their moment. "All ships, focus on the celestial flame," she ordered. "We have one chance. Take it down before they can repair it." The Dominion fleet surged forward, firing with renewed determination. The Vanguard led the charge, its weapons systems firing relentlessly at the now exposed flagship. The celestial flame tried to retaliate, but with its shields weakened, it struggled to fend off the barrage. The Tauren flagship's hull began to crack, massive plumes of energy bursting from its core. But even as the Tauren flagship reeled from the assault, it retaliated with deadly force. Its weapons targeted the Vanguard, now the largest threat on the battlefield. "Incoming fire!" Jin warned, as alarms blared across the bridge. Anna's eyes widened as a series of powerful blasts tore toward them. The Vanguard's shields flared in response, barely holding against the onslaught. For a moment, it seemed as if the ship might falter, but the shields held firm. "We're not done yet," Anna muttered under her breath. Her hands gripped the controls as if she could will the ship to victory. "Keep firing. Focus everything on that flagship." Another series of energy blasts slammed into the celestial flame, and finally, with a deafening explosion, the Tauren flagship's primary reactor detonated. The massive ship split apart in a burst of flame and debris, the shockwave sending ripples through the surrounding ships. The Tauren fleet was thrown into disarray, its once coordinated attack splintering into chaos. Anna's crew erupted into cheers, but she knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Tauren were fierce warriors, and their retaliation would be swift. "Don't let up," Anna barked, her voice commanding and focused. "We've only just begun. Hold the line." Her words were more than just a rallying cry, they were a warning. The Tauren had lost their flagship, but they were not beaten. The battle was far from over, and Ana Vasquez knew that one victory did not guarantee the war. But in this moment, with the celestial flame destroyed, humanity had proven something to the galaxy: they were not to be underestimated. the destruction of the celestial flame sent shockwaves through the battlefield. For a fleeting moment, the Dominion fleet had the upper hand. But the Tauren were not a species to be easily deterred. As the remnants of their flagship drifted through space, they regrouped, adapting their tactics with a speed and precision that only further proved their military prowess. Ana Vasquez stood at the command center of the Vanguard, her eyes scanning the chaos unfolding on the view screen. The Dominion fleet had scored a victory, but it was a Pyrrhic one. The Tauren had suffered heavy losses, but they were far from defeated. Their warships were still formidable, and they had far more reinforcements waiting in the wings. "Commander," Jin reported, his voice strained. "The Tauren are re-establishing their formation. They're about to launch another offensive. We've lost 30% of our ships, and we're running low on supplies." Ana clenched her jaw. "We can't afford to lose this battle. Not now." Her mind raced, quickly calculating their dwindling resources, the damaged ships, and the relentless enemy forces closing in. The Dominion fleet had taken a heavy toll, but the Tauren's counteroffensive would be their greatest test. If they couldn't hold the line now, they would lose everything. And that wasn't even factoring in the larger ramifications. If the Dominion fell, humanity's future would be uncertain at best. The other galactic empires were watching, and they would pounce the moment the Tauren had the upper hand. "We need a way to buy time," Ana said, thinking aloud. She glanced toward her tactical officer, Lieutenant Arak, an alien from the Oran species who had been fighting alongside the Dominion for years. "Do we still have those subspace disruptors?" Arak hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Commander. But they're experimental, no one's sure how they'll perform in combat. If we use them, we'll be leaving ourselves open to attack." Ana's eyes hardened. "If we don't use them, we'll be wiped out. I'd rather take a calculated risk than sit here and wait for the inevitable." "Prepare them." Arak worked quickly, and within minutes, the Vanguard's subspace disruptors were primed. The experimental technology was capable of scrambling the Tauren subspace communication channels, effectively disrupting their ability to coordinate their fleet. It wasn't a perfect solution, it wouldn't destroy their ships, but it would create confusion, buy precious time, and give the Dominion fleet a chance to regroup and retaliate. Ana gave the order. "Activate the disruptors. All ships, follow my lead." With a sharp, resonating hum, the Vanguard unleashed the pulse. The wave rippled through the space around them, causing the Tauren ships to momentarily flicker, their communication systems glitching as the subspace network was interrupted. The Dominion fleet capitalized on the disarray, launching a fresh assault on the weakened Tauren lines. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide of the battle might finally be turning. The Tauren fleet faltered, their once precise movements now disjointed and sluggish. Several ships veered off course, confused by the disruption, while others hesitated before launching their counterstrikes. Ana gritted her teeth. This was their opportunity, but they couldn't afford to squander it. "Now's our chance," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Hit them with everything we've got." The Vanguard and the remaining Dominion ships surged forward, weapons firing in synchronized waves. The Tauren fleet, disoriented but still dangerous, retaliated with ferocity. The Dominion ships returned fire, engaging in a brutal exchange of energy blasts, each ship dancing in the void of space as if guided by sheer determination. But the damage had already been done. The Tauren fleet's coordination was shattered, and they struggled to regroup. For the first time since the battle began, the Dominion fleet pushed forward with a force that had been long absent. Human ingenuity and resolve finally turned the tide in their favor. But even as they fought back, Ana knew this was far from over. The Tauren were relentless. They would fight to the last, and any moment of weakness could be exploited. The Dominion might have the upper hand for now, but she couldn't afford to get complacent. As the battle raged on, Ana's mind raced. She had made the decision to fight, to stand her ground, and so far, it had paid off. But every victory came with a price. The Tauren were relentless. They were not a species to bend to the will of another. Even with the momentum swinging in their favor, Anna knew that one mistake could undo everything. "Commander," Jin called out, breaking her thoughts. "We've got a new report from the reinforcements we've sent to the outer system. They're engaging Tauren scouts. We're not alone in this fight." Anna blinked in surprise. "Reinforcements? Who?" Jin looked at her with a faint smile. "Humanity, Commander. Our people have been watching." For the first time in what felt like forever, a sliver of hope sparked within Anna. There were still those out there, those who had not given up on humanity's place in the galaxy. Perhaps they had underestimated humanity's resilience. Perhaps they would no longer see Earth as a relic of the past. "Good," Anna said, her voice resolute. "We fight together." The reinforcements had arrived. Anna could hardly believe it at first, but as the report continued to flood in, a sense of overwhelming pride began to swell within her. The reinforcements weren't just another fleet, this was the culmination of a secret alliance forged by humanity's own hand. The human colonies scattered across the galaxy had rallied, bringing together a formidable force of ships that outnumbered the Tauren scouts in the outer systems. They weren't just fighting for the Dominion, they were fighting for the future of Earth, for all of humanity's survival. Anna's gaze hardened with renewed determination. The battle in the core systems was far from won, but with humanity now stepping forward as a united force, the momentum had swung even further in their favor. The Tauren might have superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity, an enemy whose strength lay not in their weapons, but in their will to survive. "Commander," Jin reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "The reinforcements are engaging the Tauren scouts. The outer system is secure. We have support on the way." Anna nodded, her hand gripping the armrests of her chair. "Good. We'll need every ship we can get." The Vanguard had already sustained significant damage, but it was still functional, its crew unbowed. The Tauren were in disarray, their fleet struggling to reorganize after the disruption, but they weren't done yet. Anna knew they would fight tooth and nail, and she had to stay sharp. There could be no room for error. "Lieutenant Iraq, report on subspace disruptor status," Anna asked, keeping her tone calm despite the tension building on the bridge. Iraq worked quickly, typing commands into his console. "The disruptors are still operational, Commander, but they're starting to draw on more power than expected. If we keep using them, we risk overloading the core." "Understood," Anna replied. She glanced out at the chaotic battlefield. "Hold them as long as you can. We need to keep the Tauren off balance." The Dominion fleet was charging forward once more, its remaining ships forming a tight formation around the Vanguard as they advanced toward the heart of the Tauren lines. Anna's tactical officers had already identified the weak points in the enemy fleet, their flanks and their rear were exposed, especially after the Celestial Flame had been destroyed. The Tauren were on the defensive now, but Anna knew they would regroup quickly. This was humanity's moment to strike with everything they had. "Fire at will!" Anna shouted. The Dominion fleet let loose a barrage of weapons. The Vanguard's main guns lit up with a torrent of energy blasts, hammering into the Tauren ships. It was a sight to behold. Despite their disadvantage in size and firepower, the humans were making their presence felt, fighting with everything they had. The Tauren struggled to keep up, and for the first time in the battle, they were forced to retreat. "Commander," Jin called out, a note of disbelief in his voice. "They're pulling back. The Tauren are retreating." Anna's breath caught in her throat. The Tauren were retreating, but it wasn't a complete rout. It was a strategic withdrawal, a pause, not a defeat. She knew they would regroup, they would lick their wounds, and they would come back stronger. The Tauren were a proud race, this was far from over. But for now, humanity had won a pivotal battle, one that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. "Don't let up. Maintain formation," Anna commanded, her voice a calm, focused contrast to the excitement swirling around her. "We can't let them regroup. Finish this while we have the advantage." The battle stretched on for hours, but the Tauren fleet's retreat gave the Dominion ships enough room to reposition, to reorganize, and to prepare for what might come next. The reinforcements had arrived in full force, and with the Tauren distracted, the Dominion could now focus on the final push. Anna stood at the front of the command center, eyes fixed on the view screen as the remnants of the Tauren fleet scattered, their ships retreating into the vast reaches of space. The Vanguard and its fleet had delivered a blow the Tauren had never expected. And for the first time, the galaxy was seeing humanity for what it truly was, not a species to be ignored, not a people to be crushed beneath the boots of the galactic empires. They had defied expectations, and the universe would never forget it. "Commander," Jin spoke again, this time with a hint of awe in his voice. "The Tauren are leaving the system. They've taken heavy losses, and it looks like they're retreating to their homeworld." Anna didn't respond immediately. Her mind was already racing ahead, considering the implications. The Tauren may have been pushed back, but this battle had changed everything. It was no longer just about the Dominion's survival. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. "We've won this round," she said finally, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "But the war is far from over. And this time, we're not fighting for our survival alone." The aftermath of the battle left the Dominion fleet with a bittersweet victory. The Tauren had retreated, their formidable forces pulling back to their homeworld after suffering devastating losses. But despite the temporary lull, there was no time to relax. The Tauren were not a species that would forget a defeat, they were calculating, patient, and ruthless. Anna knew that the war was far from over, and the coming storm could be even more dangerous than anything they had faced so far. The Vanguard drifted among the remaining Dominion ships, their hulls marked with the scars of battle. The crew was exhausted, battered, but victorious. Anna stood in the command center, staring at the star-filled expanse beyond the ship. Her thoughts were heavy. They had won a crucial battle, but had they truly changed the course of history? Or had they merely delayed the inevitable? "Commander Vasquez," Jin's voice broke through her thoughts, calm and respectful. "The reinforcements have secured the outer systems. We've received word from the Dominion High Command. They're calling it a victory." Anna didn't respond immediately. She looked out into space, the silence of the universe pressing in around her. Victory? Yes, it was a victory. But it felt fragile, as if they were standing on the edge of a precipice, and at any moment, everything could come crashing down. "The Tauren will rebuild," Anna said finally, her voice steady but filled with a quiet conviction. "We haven't seen the last of them. And when they return, they'll be ready." Jin nodded. "We've also received word from the human colonies. They're willing to support us. We've got a new coalition forming." Anna's heart lifted slightly at the mention of humanity's support. The message was clear, the galaxy had underestimated them. The human colonies had seen the battle, and they were ready to stand with the Dominion. There was power in unity, and Anna knew that their combined strength could tip the scales. Still, the thought of the Tauren homeworld weighed heavily on her. What would their next move be? They had retreated, but not without a plan, and Anna suspected that it was only a matter of time before they struck back. "Commander, we've also received intelligence from our spy network," Lieutenant Arak spoke, drawing Anna's attention. "The Tauren have begun massing forces at the edge of their empire. They're preparing for another offensive, this time on a scale we've never seen." Anna's stomach tightened. The Tauren were gathering their strength, likely waiting for the right moment to strike again. She had known this wouldn't be easy, but now the true test of humanity's resolve would come. "How long do we have?" she asked, her tone unwavering. "At least a few months," Arak replied, his eyes scanning the data. "They're mobilizing their fleet and making preparations. But this will be a full-scale war, Commander. We'll need every ship we can muster." Anna nodded. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to need to be ready for anything. This time, we take the fight to them." As she spoke, Anna could almost feel the weight of history on her shoulders. She was no longer just a commander fighting for her people's survival. She was leading the charge in a war that could reshape the galaxy itself. The Tauren would no longer see humanity as a fringe species. This battle had proven that humanity was capable of great things when pushed to the edge. But the war was far from won. It was now a race against time. Could they build up enough strength to launch a decisive counteroffensive before the Tauren could fully recover? As if answering her unspoken thoughts, Jin spoke again. The coalition fleets are already making their way here. They'll be ready within the week. Good, Anna said, her voice resolute. Let them know we're preparing for the next phase. We're not waiting for the Tauren to strike first this time. She turned back toward the view screen. The stars stretched out before her, vast and eternal. The future was uncertain, but Anna knew one thing for certain: humanity had already proven it could survive the worst the galaxy had to offer. And now, with allies at their side and the Tauren underestimating them, humanity would rise again, not as survivors, but as conquerors. We're going to end this, once and for all, Anna whispered to herself. The bridge of the Vanguard was quiet for a moment, the weight of the mission settling over them all. The fleet had won a hard-fought victory, but there was no time to celebrate. The Tauren were coming back, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The next battle would be the one that decided everything. Anna didn't know what would happen in the end, but she knew this: humanity had already rewritten the rules of the galaxy. They had already proven that the strength of a determined few could change the fate of the universe. The days leading up to the Tauren's anticipated return were filled with preparation and tension. The Dominion fleet, bolstered by the reinforcements from the human colonies, now stood stronger than ever. In the span of weeks, humanity had formed a coalition with other alien species sympathetic to their cause, species that had long feared the Tauren's expansion, but had never dared to openly defy them. The tide of the war had shifted, and Ana Vasquez could feel the weight of that shift with every decision she made. The Vanguard had undergone repairs, its hull patched and its systems upgraded, but it was more than just the ship that had changed. The crew was different now. They were united by a common purpose, a shared determination to see the war through to the end. The Tauren had underestimated humanity once, but now the entire galaxy was about to learn just how far humanity could push back. Anna stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The Tauren were still rebuilding, but intelligence reports indicated that their fleet was growing in strength and size. This time, they would be ready for anything. The Tauren had learned from their previous mistakes, but so had humanity. Commander, Jin's voice broke the silence. The Tauren have entered our quadrant. Their fleet is massive, but it's split. We've identified their primary staging area. It's heavily fortified. Anna nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. The Tauren had split their forces, likely to prevent the Dominion fleet from targeting a single location. It was a strategic move, but it also presented an opportunity. If they could strike fast and decisively, they might be able to cripple the Tauren's ability to fight back before the full might of their fleet could be brought to bear. We'll hit them hard and fast, Anna said, her voice steady. I want every ship ready to launch within the hour. Our goal is to take out their main staging area, disrupt their command structure, and break their fleet into smaller groups. We'll take them down piece by piece. Jin's eyes glinted with determination. Understood, Commander. Arak stepped forward, his expression serious. The Tauren won't give up their staging area easily. We'll need to coordinate a multi-pronged attack, something to keep their forces distracted while we go for the jugular. Anna glanced at the map again. Agreed. We'll send a decoy force to engage them on the periphery, drawing their attention. The main assault will target the staging area directly. We'll break their lines and then capitalize on the chaos. The tension in the room was palpable as the crew prepared for the final assault. Anna's thoughts raced. This wasn't just about the Dominion anymore, it was about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Tauren had come to Earth with the intent to conquer, to wipe out humanity's legacy. But humanity had fought back. They had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with, and now, they would make sure the galaxy understood that a determined few could reshape the course of history. The battle began as the Dominion fleet surged forward, ships darting through space with precision and purpose. The decoy force, a smaller group of ships, engaged the Tauren on the outskirts of their staging area, drawing the attention of their fleet. The Tauren responded predictably, launching a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the dark void of space. Meanwhile, the vanguard and the main assault force slipped past the Tauren lines, moving swiftly toward their target. Anna's heart raced as the command center buzzed with activity. The tension was unbearable, but she knew the success of this mission would determine the future of humanity. "Engage at my signal," Anna ordered, her voice cold with resolve. The first wave of blasts from the Dominion ships hit the Tauren staging area with devastating precision. The Tauren ships reeled, unable to mount a coherent defense as their command structures were shattered by the surprise attack. The Tauren fleet, still spread thin across the battlefield, began to splinter. Ships pulled away from their positions, trying to form a counterattack, but it was too late. "Commander!" Jean called out, his voice tinged with excitement. "We've broken their lines. They're retreating." But Anna knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Tauren were retreating, yes, but they weren't defeated, not yet. This was only the first stage of their final push, and the Tauren would regroup and counterattack. Still, they had achieved a major victory. The Tauren command had been disrupted, their main staging area destroyed, and their fleet was in disarray. Anna watched as the Tauren ships retreated into the darkness of space, broken and scattered. The Dominion fleet pressed forward, ensuring that the retreating Tauren would not have a chance to regroup. The remaining Tauren ships were isolated, picked off one by the combined might of the Dominion and the human coalition. "We've won," Anna said, her voice tinged with awe. "We've finally done it." But as the Tauren fleet dissolved into the void, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the true victory had been more than just the destruction of the enemy. It had been the act of defiance, the sheer force of will that had turned humanity from an underdog into a galactic power. The universe would never forget this battle. Humanity had proven that they would not be ignored, and they would not be conquered. Jean stepped forward, a smile tugging at his lips. "This will go down in history, Commander. The battle that changed the universe forever." Anna nodded slowly. "Yes, but we didn't just change the universe. We reshaped it. Humanity has found its place among the stars." As the vanguard sailed through the debris of the defeated Tauren fleet, Anna couldn't help but look ahead, toward the future. The battle had been won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning.